WSOU 89.5 FM, the loudest rock. I'm Valentino, and I'm joined today with Neil from A Day to Remember. How you doing today, Neil?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing phenomenal. So today is a very special interview for me, not only because I'm a huge A Day to Remember fan, been a huge A Day to Remember fan for years of my life. This is actually my 100th artist interview,
Oh my
and
gosh.
this is so exciting. I've had the chance to interview bands like Gojira, Papa Roach, Rise Against, and to finally interview again in my top favorite bands of all time, A Day to Remember. This is so exciting for me. So I'd like to thank you again for talking to me today about the tour and the new record and coming on the show.
Absolutely. It's awesome to be here.
Definitely. So let's get the ball rolling. Let's kick it off. The Reentry Tour starts in approximately 1 month. How are you feeling?
I feel like it could not come fast enough. I am so excited to play. I cannot believe that our last show was in Australia, 2019 in December. I think when we walked off stage then, I don't think we'd ever think that we would be almost 2 years before we step back on the stage. It's been far too long. It's been the longest in our entire career that we've ever gone without playing a show. So ready to do this.
Exactly. And a band like A Day to Remember, you're right. You're always on the road. You're always working towards something new. And it must have been weird for you guys to just kind of like relax, just kind of sit and be for a year.
I had to learn how to do normal life stuff, you're so used to being on tour. You're so used to kind of having catering, right down the hallway, or people bringing in food, or there's laundry, services, at the venue or something like that, and you get home, you're like, all right, I got to wash my socks and I got to make sure that I eat and I don't die because no one's going to make me food. This is all right, cool. Stuff like that, just real life, normal stuff. And it's been awesome. And I will say that normal life is hard. It's hard.
I totally get it. And especially a band like A Day to Remember, when you finally do get back onto these live shows, one of the things the band is notoriously known for is having the most energetic live set. How do you think these shows are going to be after, even just from a fan's perspective, a year and a half of absolutely no concerts whatsoever?
Oh my gosh, the first 15 seconds is going to be the most wild experience ever. And then we're all going to be like, my neck. No, we've been practicing. Alex and I have been getting in together every day for an hour a day. And we've just been running songs. We are going to be the most tight we've ever been, exercising, getting in shape, trying to make this thing like it never stops. We're going to go walk out on stage and it's going to be like, wait, 2 years? What? This is crazy. Yeah, that's the goal.
Exactly. And for all of our New York, New Jersey listeners, they're coming to October 4th, New York, Rooftop Pier 17. And again, just 45 minutes ago, announced another date, October 5th. So you guys can definitely get your tickets there. You're going on tour with Asking Alexandria and Point North. Point North being one of the most up-and-coming pop punk bands, and Asking Alexandria kind of being a staple in that metalcore scene. How is it to tour with two bands that you've never toured before that are really, really big in the scene now?
It's going to be awesome. I mean, it's definitely on purpose. We put this lineup together to kind of showcase all the elements to make sure that everything, if you're a fan of this music, if you're young and you're into the up and coming pop punk scene, Point North, you're really excited to kind of see that band. And if you've been around and you love heavy music, or you love kind of the stuff that Asking Alexandria does, we do, you're a fan of this genre, you're going to come and be stoked about this show. And it's kind of put together. It's really hard to do with three bands to make sure that all the bases are covered, but I think that we did a pretty good job putting together a lineup for this.
Exactly. And I am curious to ask, obviously, when you're playing these live shows with these bands, typically there is an exchange of energy, I kind of call it, where the band gets really energetic and they feed off the crowd's energy. The crowd gets really energetic and they feed off the band's energy. It's this big, cool circle of just energy and enthusiasm. Yeah. Do you think maybe after the pandemic, there's going to be maybe a weirdness, do you think obviously things are getting back to normal, but there's still some anxiety? Do you think there's going to be a normal set, or is it going to be almost altered?
I don't know. It's kind of hard to tell. Just, it's been so long for a lot of people, and there's been some shows that have come, and people played shows, and obviously they've been wild. You see videos of people playing these crowds that are just crazy. And so it's kind of hard to tell, like, if there's going to be any apprehension, or, you know, people are just going to go out there and have a great time. I mean, a day to remember represents, at least in my mind, this is what we try to do, is some kind of like escape from everything that's kind of happening in the world. And at least for one night, you can go and just forget about everything that's happening. And obviously, we're going to have a bunch of safety protocols in order, just to make sure that everyone that does come to the show is safe, and can have a good time, you know, can go off and do the things that they want to do and not really worry as much, just based on some stuff that like has happened, you know, like Lollapalooza, and the success of that festival, and kind of seeing how they did things. And we're going to kind of try and take some of the protocols that they did, and they were so successful with, and kind of implement them in, so people can come out, forget about everything that's going on, have the best night of their life, hopefully. I mean, I know that's kind of like how it's going to be for me. It's just every night that we get up there is just going to be like, damn, I am so thankful that I still get to do this, and it's happening again. And I mean, there was a period of time where it was like, are we ever going to have shows again? You know, like in the middle of this whole thing, and to finally be here and be able to play shows it's going to be incredible.
You know, you're so right. And I had a conversation with Johannes from Avatar, the band, and one of the things that he said that kind of struck me was, when shows return, every single show you go to for that first year is going to feel like that first concert ever, like that
Yeah.
emotion, that excitement. And it's exactly what you're saying too, with like, you're just going to be grateful. You know, we're all just going to
Yeah.
be so grateful to have this back again.
I got to go see, my wife and I own this restaurant here in town, and we employ a couple people that are in bands. And we were able to kind of, you know, give them jobs during this whole pandemic thing. And I got to go to see a local show recently, and it was crazy. It was like this, it was like all these bands. I'm like, man, I can't tell if I'm just like excited because I haven't been to a show in a while, or this is just like the craziest local show I've ever been to. It was like you said, it was like when I was young, I was 15 years old, going to these local shows and just being like, man, this is amazing. Like seeing everyone like kind of get along and be happy. I'm like, this is the escape that we all need. Like, I feel like if shows were able to happen, like all the like bad stuff in the world would just kind of probably float away, and everyone's like, yeah, no, I feel great now. This is great. I'm ready for life. Let's do it.
Exactly. And I think that like it's so funny because when this pandemic first happened, like that April, March, maybe even May and June vibe, we were all angry. We needed angry music. We were kind of very, very annoyed and just, you know, frustrated. But then
Yeah.
like we're so desperate for like the happy, fun times again that like if you look at like the charts, like all the happy rock songs have been like dominating for like the long time. It's because people are so desperate to get that enjoyment back, that feeling of
Yeah.
being at a show, that like happy summer vibes, because it's been so long.
Well, I hope that we can provide that experience for everyone looking, you know, come out, hang out, have a great time. It's going to be absolutely incredible. You can forget about everything that's happening and just be happy, even if it's just for that night, you know?
Exactly. And speaking of good vibes, I want to shift a bit and go into the new record. Very, very exciting stuff. You're Welcome just came out earlier this year. Tell me a little bit about that, like how that's been releasing that, how the reception has been. It's been a really phenomenal rollout process.
It's been so strange, you know, it's been amazing. Obviously, releasing any kind of work that you've been doing, like anything you've been working on for years. And at this point, it had been years, whether it was the artwork or the record itself, writing the songs. Um, it's just like you've had this secret, you know, and you've like not been able to tell anybody, and then you finally get to release. You're like, I can talk about it. Finally, this is awesome. Um, and it's like being able to do that, but then not being able to tour is so strange. Not being able to like see people's like actual reaction, because you always like you hear like when you go on the internet, like you have the people that are the loudest voice, right? Like the minority that like they have an opinion about something and they want you to hear it, and everyone kind of like compounds and like, who can say the craziest thing, you know, about all this stuff.
Yeah.
It's like, but like every other release, we've always had that, like no matter what, like even our even the most beloved album, Homesick, when Homesick came out, people were like, what is this? This is so weird. Like, what are they doing, you know? And but then we go play these shows, and it was like the most energy ever. And it was like, oh, who cares what people are saying on the internet? Like, this shit is where it's at. You know, you go play a show and you're like, this is the truth. Like, this is what's up. And not being able to have that on this release has been so weird, because it's like, man, if we could just play shows and like play these songs in front of people and just see the reaction that I know is going to be there, it's
Yeah,
going to
yeah.
be incredible. And it's just so weird. You have to like tell yourself that. And that's just kind of how it is releasing music, or how it was releasing music in 2020 or 2021, is you kind of just had to rely on your instincts and be like, I know this is incredible. And I'm so excited to play these songs live, and they're going to go off. And now that we finally get to go on tour and kind of experience that with people and like show these people like what these songs are going to feel like live, it's just going to be such an incredible feeling. And like, so it's just going to come full circle. Finally, we released the album. It's crazy that it feels like it's been like a year, 2 years since we released the album already. And we finally get to tour on it. We finally get to play some of these songs live and kind of get the reaction that it's inevitable, and we're excited to kind of finally feel that.
And that's a really good point you brought up, in the sense that like, I know personally some songs on a record, they're phenomenal on a record, my favorite track on the record. And then I hear it live and I'm like, I don't really know how I feel. And then other times they might be like a song on the record, I'm like, okay, it's fine. And then you see it live and it's like, this is the greatest song that I've ever heard in my life.
Yeah.
And you don't really know until you like test that out live and start playing these songs. So it's got to be
like,
weird to like drop a record and just not
not have that, not have that gauge. It's weird too. It's like you have those moments too where you like look and see, like you like look to your friends that you're like with, and like everyone's like vibing. And you're like, damn, this song is great. I always skip this song on the record. Like I feel like, as a fan of music myself, like in the beginning, there was this band when I was getting into music. It was this band called Thrice. And like all my friends love Thrice. I'm like, man, I don't know. They're kind of a little heavy for me. This is like when I was really young. I'm like, like Slipknot used to scare the shit out of me. Like when I was younger, like I'm like, oh, they're screaming. This is wild. And then I like kind of started listening. I went to this band Face to Face show. I love Face to Face. I love this band Midtown. They were playing, and then Thrice opened the show, and I was like, I don't know. I'm not really a fan of Thrice. They scream and stuff. It's kind of freaks me out. Whatever. And I remember seeing it live and just being like, this is my new favorite band. I cannot live without listening to this band. And it's just funny because it's like, without that live experience and like feeling those songs and feeling that emotion of him screaming and like doing that in like a live setting and like looking at people reacting to it, I never would have got into Thrice. And they were a band that like was a huge influence on me. And so I think that like without those live experiences, you're not going to like get into things that you normally would be like, I don't know, I don't know if I don't know, I'm not really feeling it. And you see it live, you're like, oh, this is my favorite. I need this every day.
And especially with a band that like fuses genres like A Day to Remember, that's even more exciting, because like if you're like, I don't really know how I feel about heavy metal, then you're not going to go to a heavy metal show. But if you like pop punk and you go to a show and this band incorporates heavy metal, or they incorporate rock and pop rock and alternative rock, I mean, like on the record itself, I think this is so cool. You go from Last Chance to Dance, one of the heaviest songs I've ever heard, into FYM. It's just like so funny. And I imagine like seeing that live has got to be such a unique, cool experience.
Yeah, it's there's no rules with us. Anything goes, and it's all about feel. It's all about what creates that feeling, like songs that do that. Like you go like from the heaviest song on the album to like something that's so lighthearted and like a almost kind of a joke, it's like, wait till I get some you money. It's like, you know what I mean? It's like, this is just, we're having the best time ever. And that's the way that I think that we've been able to kind of like be the bridge for so many people that are getting into these different genres. Like people that, like you said, never would listen to a song like Last Chance to Dance, but they're doing it because on an album, these songs flow into each other and they're different genres all in the same song. And then when you go see it live, you're like, oh, this didn't make sense to me on the record, but now this makes perfect sense. And I totally get, I just got hit in the head with a beach ball, and now I'm in a mosh pit, and now I'm crowd surfing, and now I'm throwing toilet paper at this band. This is awesome,
Exactly. And like even like the hamster ball that Jeremy used to do and all that stuff, that's just it's so original. It's so unique. I feel like no one in the scene was doing that. No one in the scene is doing it now. And it's just so cool to see that live energy.
We have five. We have 5 of those now. So
you have 5 hamster balls now?
No, I'm just sure.
Oh, I was about to say that'd be really funny. I can imagine trying to see Alex Shelma in a hamster ball, I think would be the funniest thing ever.
He's just trying to like drum. He's like hitting the sticks on the bubble and stuff.
Just like the whole crowd is like really struggling to lift him up, and all the drum sets just like,
Like falling over. He's like maybe hitting like a snare drum every once in a while.
yeah, the
Like,
song
come
just
on,
has no
Alex. Like, what
drums.
you got, dude? He's like, I'm like getting thrown everywhere.
I absolutely love it. Another question I wanted to ask you about this new record. Obviously, the album artwork done by Mike Cordata. He's done a lot of your previous records before. This one kind of has a new texture to it. I feel like a
Yeah.
lot of the other album artwork was very like almost like cinematic, like art kind of stuff, whereas this is more like 3D, kind of like realistic, you know? Was that the plan when you were writing this record? What kind of went into that album art process?
The album artwork was actually done by like 3 different people. And it was like a collaborative process. And the whole time, I think because this album, the influences range so far and they reach so far, and there's such a different, unique sound, and there's so many new sounds. There's so many things that we've used on this album that we've never done before. We really struggled with like how that could be represented in an artwork. And it took us kind of finding the collage that is the landscape piece. We found it on the internet. There's this collage artist, and we were just looking and looking and looking and looking, and we finally found this piece of art. And we're like, wow, I don't know how this makes sense, but this is it. You know, like it's like a gateway to this new place, that something that like looks familiar, and then you go into a place that is completely unknown. And so like that kind of represented the album for us. Whereas when we started, we didn't know what we were going to do. And by the end, we were like, holy, that was crazy. Like, did we just write all those songs? Like, you know, and we just kind of like went with our gut and kind of made things that like felt good to us. And by doing that, it took us to this new place, this place that like we could have never imagined existed when we started. And that's kind of what the artwork represents. Whereas there's this guy, he's standing with his back, like all A Day to Remember albums, looking down this, like looking at this hole in this wall that's been broken through. And then you see this like red carpet, and then you see this like place that you can't tell where it is or what it is. And it's almost supposed to just kind of like represent just going for it, and just going, and sometimes it seems scary, whatever, you just do it and then figure it out later. And that's kind of what this is. And it was a collaborative effort between 3 artists that we kind of brought together, Mike being one of them. And this guy, Chris Custer, he works at Fly South Art Management. He kind of helped put some of the stuff together, the initial elements that ended up being on the final project. But yeah, and it's just like this effort, this collaborative effort, which was kind of like what the whole album was like making, and everyone just working together and adding all these different influences. And then you make this thing that is completely unique, that doesn't look like anything else we've ever done or feel like anything else we've ever done, but also kind of feels like everything we've done, just in a new way. So that's where the artwork kind of comes from.
And like, I know I've said this before multiple times in this interview on the WSOU airwaves, with a band like this, where it's so versatile, so diverse, you've got so many other things happening. I definitely think that definitely makes sense in sense of all the different sounds that you tackle, going to this new different realm, which is just so cool. And I'm happy that it was a collaborative effort. I've got one more question to ask you today. I'd like to personally thank you so much for joining me, talking, being on the show, talking to WSOU. This question is kind of like almost like a way back question. Because as I've said, I've been a fan for a long time. I've been through a lot of A Day to Remember albums. The last question I have is Life Lessons Learned the Hard Way off Common Courtesy. Very, very fun song. That bridge kind of has almost like a bomb drop. It's very cool. One of my favorite breakdowns of all time, if I'm being honest. Any insight into that breakdown, that song, anything you have?
That song specifically is about a situation that happened a few years ago, where there was a website that was created that kind of ruined a bunch of people's lives. And it was a real scenario. It was about the creator of that website and how careless he was with all these people and all their things that he exposed of them, and all these situations and how it affected their lives. I mean, in the song, it talks about a little girl killed herself, and that was a real thing. And it just talks about how in life you can do these bad things and think you're going to get away with it and think that there's no consequences, but there's always consequences. And that's what it's about. It's about, you think you're going to escape this thing and do whatever you want and hurt whoever you want, but one day, it's coming for you. And at the end of the song, you can kind of hear the clock ticking, and that's kind of what that signifies, is you only got so much time before karma comes back around. And eventually he got what was coming to him, and all the stories in that song are real, and they come from a place that was experienced by us and people close to us. So yeah.
Well, thank you again. That's a very powerful message for an incredible song, and so I'm happy to finally learn that insight on that. Again, I'll say it again for all of our New York, New Jersey listeners. October 4th, they're coming to New York, Rooftop Pier 17. Also October 5th as well. New album, You're Welcome, available now. Thank you so much, Neil.